Hello, Awards Watch listeners and readers. This is Ryan McQuaid, staff writer here at Awards Watch. Eric is not here for this part of the show, this podcast, this interview that we're doing today. He is coming off the midst of celebrating a big birthday. And so I am here, and you're having to listen to me right now. And shout out to Eric, our big leader here at Awards Watch, and happy birthday to him yet again at the time of listening to this. Truly just a special guy. But I'm not here to just celebrate and praise Eric. I'm here to introduce my interview with director John M Chu, who has had a really great run over the last couple of years, especially with the crazy success of the movie Crazy Rich Asians. And now his follow-up to that was the big hit of the summer, In the Heights. And of course, the film is based off of the Broadway smash hit written and composed by, and even starring, Lin-Manuel Miranda. And it's a movie that follows these characters living in the neighborhood of Washington Heights, the northern tip of Manhattan, and mostly follows Usnavi, who's a sympathetic New York bodega owner saving every penny he has to hopefully chase his dreams and have a better life. The film, of course, stars Anthony Ramos, who just landed a Golden Globe nomination, Corey Hawkins, Leslie Grace, Melissa Barrera, Olga Meredith, Jimmy Smits, and many, many more. I had the privilege of seeing this film earlier in the year, just as everybody else had, and it's still one of my favorite films of the year. And for me, as a Latino critic, it rings so true on so many things in the community in which I have grown up and live in still today. And when I sat down with Director Chu, we talked about that. We talked about the experience of shooting this and what musicals mean to him. And it was a fascinating conversation. He's one of the more energetic voices I've spoken with. You really can feel why this musical, In the Heights, has the energy and the vibrancy that it does because of this director who is working right now at the top of his game. So without further ado, here's my interview with Jon M Chu. I want to start by saying that this is still one of my favorite films of the year. I rewatched it last week, and I'm still moved by it. It's such a personal film, and I think that you can see that through the characters. And obviously, it's based off the musical by Lin.
Yeah.
And so, my first question to you, and you may have answered this before, but when was the first time you were aware of the musical? Did you see it on Broadway?
Yeah.
Did you experience it? And then was there ever a moment when you were watching it and you're like, oh, what would that sequence be like if I was be able to put this on the big screen? And when you got to do that sequence, if there was that case, where you like, did you have kind of an out of body experience doing that?
Well, first of all, I love that you said it feels so personal, because it does. To me, I think to every actor that was putting themselves on screen, had a very personal connection to the story. Obviously, Lin writing these songs and creating this story with Kiara, who they both live in this neighborhood still. I think it was personal on every level, in every department. It was one of the most caring, loving environments, creative environments with high pressure that I've ever been on. And I didn't know if it would show up on the screen. So it makes me feel really good to know that it did pierce through the projector or screen or whatever, wherever you may have seen it. I remember seeing it, and it touched me very personally when I was directing my first movie in Baltimore called Step Up to the Streets. And in that movie, we had a salsa section. There was Luis Salgado, who helped us with that section. He was in the movie as well. And he was in this show called In the Heights in New York. He's like, come check it out one weekend. So I took a break, took the train to New York, and I saw this thing from this guy named Lin-Manuel Miranda. And again, I'm not from New York. I'm not Latino. I'm from the opposite end of the country, from a Chinese restaurant. But it was an immigrant community. I know what it's like to be raised by your aunties and your uncles and friends and neighbors, and have that different idea of what America is or should be. And that story completely moved me in that theater. I was on the floor moved by it. He has this, both Kiara and Lynn have this amazing ability to connect to humanity. And so watching it, I was like, this is an amazing piece of art. And who is this person that's putting this up there? I wish I had put money into that person, because I would be very rich right now, but I didn't. I was just in awe of him. And then, yeah, I didn't picture, I never thought I would ever direct the movie. But of course, everything I watch, I think about like, oh, I wonder how you could do that. I thought, how fun would that be to take this character and put them all across the neighborhood of Washington Heights, to bring, because it felt like they had brought Washington Heights to Broadway. What if you brought Broadway to the actual Washington Heights, which, since it's pretty darn close. So anyway, that's what I thought. And yes, when we were shooting with Lynn and Kiara on those streets with Anthony Ramos, and the streets are coming to life with music. The person with the hose is doing it to the beat. We have our playback playing. We have dancers in the street. It was a magnificent moment. I mean, I think we cried every day at some point, everybody looking at each other, because we couldn't believe that we got to do this.
I cried multiple times the first time I saw it. And then I reshowed it to a friend of mine, and within that first opening number, they were in tears. Unfortunately, we weren't at the theater for that one. So, and I apologize. We paused it on HBO Max, and it overwhelmed him with emotion. And I think that that's what's so beautiful about this musical than most of the musicals I've seen this year, because it's been such a year of musicals, is that this one has such a reverence and heart to it. And I think it's from the get-go. And so, I mean, obviously it touched you so much that you wanted to, when this project was floating around, what were the things that when you saw on stage that you saw that when you were talking with Lynn, like, this has to be here, this, maybe it's a number, maybe it's a tone, maybe it's something there that you specifically were like, this has to be in this movie. And when we're creating this, this has to stick with us the whole time.
That's a good question. I think Paciencia y Fe was one of those ones. I mean, it's a very different motivation in the stage musical, because it's at the end of the first act. And so you find out that she's won the lottery at that. And so that there's a very, very big plot point to that. But besides that, the emotion of it, this idea that all our parents or grandparents came to the United States, and we always say, so they were in China and they came over here, or they're in Cuba and came over here. We skip the part, the rock star, like, you know how rock star you have to be to say, this isn't working for me. I'm dropping everything and I'm moving to another country where I have no friends or family there. That is so ballsy and so courageous. And I wanted to make sure that we presented that in the most beautiful, to literally express the courage that it took, and the view in which they see it, that it's not dirty and grungy and sad. Like, it wasn't easy, and I'm sure there were struggles throughout, but they created a family, they created a community, and what I see in my parents, my grandparents, and a lot of immigrant families is you have to have some sort of optimism in order to survive that. And you have to carry that optimism onto your kids and their kids in order to survive it. So I really wanted to protect Paciencia y Fe. That's the easiest number in a movie to cut or to give zero resources to. I mean, it's those songs by a character that's not young and cool, in movie people's eyes, that is the first thing to go. And so Lynn and I and Kiara definitely were like, we need to protect this. We need to have this. This is very important. We've never given this kind of room to this story. Let's make it beautiful. So that was, and we had to, even during it, when we had our own doubts about, well, is it necessary? Do you need to have it? How, like, we would prod each other to stick to what we promised in the beginning.
Yeah. And I mean, you're telling a full life. You're telling the immigrant story. You're telling this wonderful story within a story at this point through this one song. And Olga's amazing. I mean,
it was Olga. She floored us when she came into the audition. She floored us when we did the table read. And I think that when we recorded it on camera, it was like, I think everyone got to see how deep it lives in her. I mean, this was for all our Abuela Claudias.
Yeah.
This was for my Boo Boo. This was for my Gong Gong. This is for everyone who's had that journey.
Yeah, I watched it. I saw the film first a year after my grandmother's passing away, and I was in tears. I was just like, this is her. This is what she did, you know, and that how I'm here and how you're here is a product of generations, right?
Yeah.
Making that sacrifice.
Yeah.
And
I love that moment at the end of it, as the song is ending, she's in her bed and she's looking out at her family, and you see little Sonny, 14-year-old Sonny, being embraced by the family, being taken care of. They're taking care of each other, and she knows she did her job. That is, to me, like the biggest victory of that. All that dance number, that whole expression comes to the moment where she watches her family continuing what she started. And that's what that to me is the moment.
And I love that shot of you two also in the tunnel with the hesitation. There's that hesitation, right? Where it's like, should I stay? Do I need to stay? And then, like you're saying, she looks at him and she goes, no, they're going to be okay. Yeah. And I just think that is such a beautiful thing that not many musical directors get. And also they don't understand, because it's all about the character and it's all about the emotion and showing different sides of that. So I guess my other question to you would be, you've done musicals, you know, not necessarily to like this. You've done, you know, different styles of musicals. You're doing another musical down, you know, as your one of your next projects.
Yeah.
What draws you to musicals? Why do you love making them? And what is the challenge of always when you're making the next one? Is it trying to top, you know, what you did with this? Is it trying to put yourself in a different challenge in any sort of way? Like, what draws you to this genre the most, more than any other genre?
Well, I think it's because dance, music, it's another language of expression. And I think oftentimes when people think of a musical, they think of, oh, it's a story with a dress on, because you're going to put on this fun, entertaining thing on top of a story. Where in fact, I think it's like actually 2 layers below dialogue. It's like actually like within your soul. When words can't express it, movement can, and a melody can make your brain release a chemical that reminds you of a thing, of a past, of a memory, or can communicate something to an audience that has no idea what you're saying dialogue-wise, but can feel what you're feeling. And so for me, I'm always trying to find, and again, In the Heights was actually technically my first feature musical.
Yeah.
All the other stuff was music driven or like dance stuff. And so I got to learn dance in a separate language. With the Step Up, you know, where it's just sort of fun and understanding. But really, when I got to know the dancers, because they're some of my best friends and became and are some of the biggest arts inspirations of my life. They continue to do so to make me dream bigger, because they are pure artists. And so I think it's getting to know them, like, oh, the B-boys, they love to wear their Puerto Rican flag, but I didn't quite understand why until getting to know them and hanging out with them and saying, oh, this is all an expression. Like, they couldn't go to ballet class. They couldn't go to take classes in the local community place for tap dancing or something. They watched MTV and recorded these B-boys and were in their garage, would figure out how to do their moves. And so it was always like visual poetry to me. And when doing In the Heights, it was like, oh, you're adding a new language, which is lyrics. And you have the king of lyrics with you, probably the best of our generation, maybe beyond, Lin-Manuel Miranda, and he's giving you these golden nuggets every 15 seconds. So now you have to combine these two languages, and they can't run each other over. You can't have a dance number run over the lyrics, and you can't have lyrics run over and not know that like how you move is actually representation and diversity. It's not just the color of your skin. It's like the way they dance, the way they move, the way they sing, what kind of music base is all these songs written around. That goes with representation of who these people are. They're not doing ballet and jazz in this. They're doing the stuff that is inside them. And so for me, that was really important. For all of us. And for the dancers, we let them be who they are and would build, almost reverse engineer moments of like, how do you express yearning? How do you express frustration when it's the blackout? Okay, everyone freestyle of what you would do. Like, is it chaos? Is it anger? Or is it actually when God pulls the plug from you and the lights go out, you actually turn to the people you love and trust the most for safety. And so it actually brings the community closer. And so how do you express that? So that's, I guess when I look at a musical, it's not about being bigger. It's not about having spectacle. It's about getting deeper. And I know how powerful music is because it helps me growing up. We watch musicals and listen to music all the time growing up. And I didn't know, and my parents, they speak English, but not amazing English. And so sometimes that was the way we had to express love to each other too. That and food. So that's why I do a lot of food in my work as well.
Man, the food in the film, I was like, my God, that's the stuff I grew up on. I was sitting and I was like, my God, she's making everything that I'm gonna have later at the holidays.
By the way, I don't know all those foods, which was part of this process. Was you have Lynn, you have Kiara, you have every single actor. We have food experts there, and we gave space for everyone to speak up and to say, hey, if you get this Dominican breakfast on camera, we're not sure it's ever been on camera before. So it's going to take 20 minutes to reset the camera. And we're going to take the time to do that because we know that that's important. And so it was a really great collaborative effort and all of that.
Yeah, for sure. No, and you speak to the choreography and everything. I think of the three big set pieces that you have in this film, for me at least, and that's the opening number, and then of course, 96,000, which it was done at this giant community pool, and it's so big and expansive, and it's as a fan for me, watching, I was like, this is everything you kind of want for a musical, and the space and everything. But then Carnival De Barrio, I mean, you have everyone dancing with their different flags and their nationalities and everything. It's so personal. So could you speak to maybe something from those three numbers that really stuck with you leading up even to the premiere and showing this to everyone, like those three sequences, the opening, 96,000 and Carnival De Barrio?
Well, we worked with a great our choreographer was Christopher Scott, but we had a team of other choreographers that were really helpful. We love to build teams, and Eddie Torres Jr. is a freaking legend. Him and Princess, they did a lot of the Latin dance choreography, and that was in the club, and of course the opening number and throughout. I mean, this is a very collaborative effort. So Carnival De Barrio was like probably the greatest. We shot that in one day. Everything in that space was shot in one day, from the dialogue to we had one day, that was it. And we're in a real courtyard in Washington Heights. The neighbors were probably hating us, although they would lean out the window and they would started waving their flags as well. And we knew we had to shoot in a day, so they had to do everything. They had to be able to perform the whole scene in real time. And we did that several times. We just turned on cameras and said, do the scene. And it's like 9 minutes long, 9-minute long number and dialogue. And it was so beautiful to see each, from all the different types of dancing, including street styles like light feet, mixed in with Puerto Rican, Cuban, all the styles in there was so beautiful, and everyone got so into it. I would call cut, and no one would ever stop. It was like cut, and they would just keep celebrating.
Yeah.
And especially because everyone got to have their flag from where they're from, and anyone we were missing, we put on a banner and made sure we included all the Latin American flags. So we painstakingly made sure that every flag was represented there of a Latin American country. And so, and by the end, again, I called cut, nobody stopped. There's our last shot. And everyone just kept jumping up and down and cheering, New York, New York, Latino. It was like crazy. And Lynn was up on there on the fire escape, and they all look up at Lynn and they just start chanting, Lynn, 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 including our crew, including me. I get up there, we start jumping up and down for Lynn. He can't move, he's crying, because this is what he did. You know, he manifested this from a moment where he couldn't have roles for himself and he didn't see his own community reflected. He wrote this story, and here we are making a movie, and all these dancers, extras, crew members, even myself, we all have opportunities because he decided to change that. And now we know that it's possible. And so we're all going to attempt to change that. It was like a laser beam from space in that courtyard that day. I'll never forget what it felt like to shoot that.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I mean, seeing people that look like myself up on the screen, it was so personal. And I think you, and I know I got one last question for you, and that is, you know, the film's come out. It's been out a while now. You've gone through the summer, you've gone through this award season, you've gone through everything, and you know, you've had the highs, you've had some, you know, a little bit of lows. It's been rocky, whatever you want to call it, whatever. Who cares? What has been the thing that maybe somebody's told you, maybe it's an experience, a story, or something that you've taken and you go, okay, if we've had all this noise, all this chatter and everything, at least we did this. At least it hit maybe this person or that person. Is there something that you've taken away from this whole experience that, you know, that puts a smile to your face or warms your heart that, no, we did the right thing and everything's okay?
Yeah, 100%. I'm so proud of this movie. We made last year, it was like of speaking roles, Latino speaking roles, it was 4.6% in Hollywood. Yeah. That's atrocious. And we did a movie directed by a person of color, created by a person of color, written by a woman of color, with a cast full of people of color, not just our main cast, but every from dancers to extras to crew members to everything, all shades of color, and a celebration. There's not drugs, there's no gun violence, there's no knife violence. It is all about joy and all about rooting for these people's dreams. And we shot it in the neighborhood, and we involved the neighborhood. And I think if you look at all the, you know, we have like, I don't know, 94% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is very, very difficult at like 390 reviews across the world. It's not just America. It's not just the coast. This is across the world. You know how hard it is to sustain that. And if you read them, they're effusive of the joy and the celebration they got from this and the being moved by these people. And I love that this story is about working people that are taking care of their family. It's the bodega owner that you pass by every day. It's a Chinese restaurant owner that you don't pay one ounce of attention to, but they're raising their family and they're giving them dreams. And maybe they're the person you pass on the bus stop or in the lobby of your apartment building. I love that this honors them at the highest Hollywood levels possible, that we made Warner Brothers market this like a giant movie for everyone to go, that they had to see it, that we put this in theaters, we put this in homes, that we put Anthony Ramos and Leslie Grace and Melissa and Corey and all these people and Olga in front of people and said, pay attention, they're important. And now they all have roles in other bigger movies, from Transformers to DC movies to other things, that they're going to carry that legacy forward. So there's a lot of things to be proud of here. I think that we broke the mold at every corner of this movie, that this is not the Hollywood norm, and we should be celebrating that. And this is everything that we always complain about of Hollywood. And I think we deliver it, and there's more to do, but we delivered this meal that we should be able to celebrate. And I'm excited that more and more people get to see it over time. And like you said, when you look at anybody on that screen, they're giving it all. You can, in Carnival, look at anybody. That's all truth. None of that is like a performance there. And that lives forever. No one can take that away.
No, I totally agree. It's totally worth celebrating. I mean, Anthony was nominated for a Golden Globe last week, and
yes,
and he totally deserved it. And I'll say right here, the film deserved to be in there too. You guys all did a fantastic job. It's one of the best films of the year. Best of luck on future endeavors. I know you're working on Wicked. I know you've probably got Crazy Rich Asian sequels on the horizon as well. Hopefully, just best of luck, and thank you so much for this film.
Thank you. Appreciate you,
sir.
You're right.